Just looking at the front of your hoodie, you look black on the front, and then in the back, you're covered in a pound of dust.
Which now leads me to the next phase of the project here.
You're even turning your Nissans into BMWs.
I'm telling you, well, listen. You guys haven't seen us use this tool, it is from Airlift, and essentially what it does is it sucks all the air out of the cooling system, as you guys saw. Then I plug this line in, have my coolant in a bucket, and it sucks it all back up and in. It's quite clever. It's a good way to not get air in your cooling system. And it's fairly easy and turnkey. And as a bonus, it also allows you to make sure that you don't have any leaks in the system, because if this is reading, if you fill this up to 25 HG vacuum and it drops to 20 within 30 seconds, you know you have a leak in the system. So it's a really, really great piece of equipment. You guys just saw I put in the Xerox by Valvoline blue, that's right, blue coolant for the Nissan there, and motor oil, same deal, Valvoline's best, the VR1 synthetic. We really, really love running this stuff because this has high zinc. So this is your greatest protection that you're gonna get for your engine. If you've got a catalytic converter, you wanna be careful with this stuff. You can probably run it for a track day or two, but you wanna take it out afterwards and go back to one of their premium synthetics. With the fluids out of the way, we are going to work on finalizing the engine bay here, and then moving on to putting the front bumper on and doing the interior and getting this car back together. And I have purchased a brand new cowl, as you can see right here, because the other one was very tired, very cracked, and just not in good shape. So this is gonna be, I think, a good addition if I could figure out how to get it in here. Do I need to bend it? Oh boy, this is always nerve-wracking. Yeah, okay. There we go. We are in. You can see, wow, that looks so much better already. before I go putting the front bumper on, I want to make sure we do a smoke test to make sure that there are no leaks in the entire system, because we are headed to the dyno, and the last thing you want at the dyno is to figure out that, you know, you've got, I don't know, a hose that's loose, or worst case scenario, one of the welds that I did is leaking, or a gasket somewhere that's completely failed. So you can see I'm just filling this whole thing with smoke, and so far it's pretty good. It doesn't build pressure. What I usually do is, you can see I've got my pressure tester hooked up here. Everything's closed off, so I just pump a little bit of pressure into the whole system. But so far so good. I don't see any leaks, which is a very, very good sign. It's maybe hard to see, but I did just find a bit of a leak on this hose right here. You can see the clamps either not doing a job, or the hose is pretty old. So I am going to replace that hose, because as you can see, that is actually one of the major rubber lines that goes into the top of the intake pipe here, so the intercooler pipe. So it certainly makes sense to fix that. But otherwise, the good thing is everything around here is not leaking. When you see smoke coming from here, it's usually trouble. So this is a small, you know, inconvenient but easy fix. All right, so my quick fix was just to put a proper clamp on it, and you can see it is now not leaking. I am using the same style of clamp. I'm gonna take this one off here, just destroy it and pull it off. I'm using the same style over on this side. So what I'm gonna do is just replace that one as well, just to be sure, because you never know. This is at still a low, you know, pressure at 15, 16 PSI. The other one could be leaking, but otherwise everything else looks good. Let me give it a little bit of pressure here. Okay, that's 5 PSI there, and you can see we've got no smoke coming out of anywhere, which is really, really nice. I pretty much knew this was gonna happen, and this is part of the reason why I went with an aftermarket front Spec Aero bumper, because you do need to trim this area here. Nobody wants to trim these pristine OEM ones, but you can see that we're super close, but we do have to trim it. We're just not back far enough. Like, I can't get this up here to where it needs to be. So there is going to be a little bit of trimming that needs to be done there. You can see also right here, I am going to have to trim a little bit here to get this not to rub against there. This side is a little bit worse, only because this intercooler pipe seems to be a little bit higher, so I don't have the ability to kind of like move it over. So a little bit needs to be trimmed here. So that like, I'm just racking my brain which way to do this, because I don't love the idea of, you know, sectioning it out to kind of give it like an ovalized shape, because the grill that needs to run in here is flat. But at the same time, if I start like taking a bunch out trying to keep this straight, it's never gonna work, and I don't want to damage the paint either. So we're just gonna have a quick think about this, and then we're just gonna get the tools out and give her and pray that this stuff comes out looking as good as it can. I think this actually turned out quite well. If you look at it, it's hard to notice a little bit of section. I can see it. I'm sure you guys might be able to see that it does kind of taper in a little bit here, but from anybody looking at this from afar, I don't think they're ever gonna notice it. It was the right call versus like cutting out just a section for that, that intercooler pipe. And otherwise, this small little, you know, again, clearance job that I had to do here is good. This other side here as well, it's really good. It's just a tiny bit close with the mesh now, but I'm gonna try to, like, you know, I don't know, figure something out with this. The mesh, it still needs to come in a little bit tighter in that area, but overall, I think for having these intercooler pipes in here, it's pretty damn good.
As far as cutting the fiberglass goes, PT, like just looking at the front of your hoodie, you look black on the front, and then in the back, you're just covered in a pound of dust.
That's why I hate doing body work, man. Like the shop is not built out for it, and that's not, you know, now the dust is settled on other things too, but it's just how it goes. I always do my best to try to put the factory fender liners in because first of all, they add a little bit of rigidity to the bumper, but second of all, you don't want water if you do drive a car through any type of weather condition. You just don't want that stuff spraying everywhere. This certainly makes it much better. I did a mini tuck on that wiring harness. For those of you that don't know, if you lower these S chassis low enough, that harness up there does rub on the wheel in compression, so you kind of like tuck it away. There's a way to kind of like move it all the way over, but it does require taking the fender off. It's a lot more work. We're not super low, so I'm confident that's gonna work well. I had to build a couple of small little brackets here to get these side liners in place, but they worked out well. I had to take the front piece off of here. I didn't show you guys that, but there was a whole front piece here that that now can't be there because of the front mount intercooler. Otherwise, it was a bolt-on thing that only took me 2 hours because that's how it always goes. By the way, I know some of you are gonna look at this and say, whoa, there's a gap here, and that means this the air is gonna pull this down and tear it out. But I'm confident it's not going to, and for the main reason you can see, it's pretty tight on there. Like even pulling on this, there's enough points here and here that hold this on. And second of all, when the air enters into this way here, or even if it does try to like come up through here, it does have an exit point back here, and that does draw the air out. But of course, if you've done this and you have experience and you want to say otherwise in the comments, please do so. With this thing on the ground, you can really get a good look at how wonderful a front mount intercooler looks in this vehicle. If you've got a Spec car and you don't have a front mount, what are you doing? Really, what are you doing? And if you don't have this Aero bumper, what are you doing? Because man, I think this car looks unreal now. It truly does look amazing. Which now leads me to the next phase of the project here, which means putting all of the interior back in. And I know that might seem like a quick and easy task, but we haven't done this in about, I think we took this out like 3-4 months ago. So that means I don't know where anything goes. Literally everything was stripped, and it's going to be a fun job. So let's get to it. back here anyways. I don't know why I'm even doing this. Several hours worth of work, and the interior is pretty much all back together. You saw we did give it a full cleanup job. A lot of this, there was a lot of remnants from the body shop. It was pretty dirty, but everything's cleaned up really well. I do love it. It feels like a rejuvenated interior. However, some pieces, no matter how much cleaning we do, will never look good. You can see the center console here was just absolutely trashed. Even the this trim piece was really bad, and more so the shift boot. Well, it was next level gone. Thankfully, you can buy this stuff new from Nissan. So you can see this thing is minty fresh, and it's gonna go on here. Just
what
drop
did this
that
piece cost out of curiosity, Pete? Do you recall?
You know what? This stuff isn't overly expensive. I don't recall, but it's not that bad. Like all of this, what was really expensive actually was the shift knob. It wasn't cheap, but it's not like it's $400 or $500. Like if I recall, you know, this thing's $150, and look at that, you get a fresh, brand new shift knob here. That's gonna be really nice. It's the same thing with the centerpiece. One thing I forgot to order, which I just placed, is the ashtray here. So, you know, I always miss one thing, but let's put this all together and we'll show you what it looks like. But you know what? So far, the match isn't actually all that bad.
No, it isn't.
So it is like a slight shade darker. You can see just a little bit. I think not enough that, you know, it's going to be an eyesore for anybody, but more so, look at this centerpiece here with the shift knob. How nice does that look? I wanted to show a few things on the door here. First one being, I had to replace all of the speakers essentially because they're all trashed really badly. This one, you know, this one is actually probably one of the better of the ones. This probably would have worked for a little bit, but the one in the rear, as you can see, was just fully hammered. I don't even know how that happened. Somebody was cranking the tunes a little bit too loud. In its place, I'm using a set of Pioneer speakers. I used some JBLs in the back. They were the 6.5 inch, and they fit up perfectly. Up front here, I couldn't get them to work. And this one, I do have to just trim these little nubs off of here, get those guys off. And then this guy here actually will line up with like 3 of the 4 holes, so it'll work quite nicely, whereas that JBL one was just a little bit too big. There it is, speaker is in place there, and ironically we have ourselves the factory radio in there, which means we're not going to be able to use FM or AM, if I'm not mistaken, because the frequency is different. The only thing we'll be able to do is this thing has a 6-disc CD changer in the trunk, which means we can load in some vintage CDs and listen to the music that way. Maybe I'll make an upgrade to the head unit in the future. I do love the idea of having that like nav system there, which we haven't been able to get working, but I'm just gonna leave it as is. Moving on to the next thing on the door, which I wanted to show you, is the paint shop did a wonderful job painting the entire door, as you can see. So they painted the outside and the inside of it. However, they did get rid of that vapor barrier, which is essentially like this thin plastic shield that keeps moisture out. My plan here is, instead of redoing that piece of plastic, what I'm gonna use is DEI's boom mat, and essentially do the same thing, close off like large areas that are open here with the boom mat, which is going to do 2 things. First of all, it's gonna, you know, act as that vapor barrier, but second of all, it's gonna really quiet down any type of acoustics that are coming through the door. And if you know S chassis, they are loud. I'm trying to do this as an OEM plus build, and as a bonus, I think it may give us a little bit like a nicer touch to close this door, DP. Which
German sounding.
That's
doors.
right. Let's see how this works out.
You're even turning your Nissans into BMWs now.
I'm telling. Well, listen. I'm just trying to be a distinguished gentleman these days, DP. The only thing to worry about here is you can see these rod mechanisms do move. So what I've done is left the plastic intact in this area. So when I put this on and stick it on here, it's not going to interfere with the, you can see the rods just like that. Now I'll do this again for down here, here, and here, and we'll show you the finished product here. That sounds German, DP. Hear that? Not tinny Japanese, and truthfully, the door doesn't really feel that much heavier. It's just gonna feel more sturdy. Before I go putting the door car back in and we can actually close this and listen to the sound it makes, I gotta change out this weather seal that runs around the outside here. And that is because these, sadly, tend to tear up in this area here. And with this being a fresh new paint job, you can see this has failed here, right in this area. So I don't love that. It doesn't look good, and it's cheap. I think these were 40 bucks to buy each. And again, that's kind of the beauty of this generation of S15 or of S chassis is it's still new enough where you can buy a lot of stuff and you can really refresh this to like new condition. Where at this point, I think with this trim here, that is it. Like we've refreshed every trim piece on this car, so to make it look factory fresh. Everything's back together, and here we go. It's pretty good.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
It doesn't have like that clank that the old German cars have, but
it sounds like a vault being closed.
But it's way better than like 90% of S chassis that I've dealt with. We are officially done with the interior. You guys saw we tried to clean the seats as best as possible. They did clean up a little bit, but there's just no way to fix wear and tear. The driver's seat is fairly worn, unfortunately. This one is in better shape, but it does have this cigarette burn that is very unsightly, and that is a mega cigarette burn there. Somebody was smoking like a cigar in here, because that's a huge piece of ash to make that kind of burn in there. But you know,
that's JDM for you.
I'll keep my eye out for some used seats locally. If they come up, I might jump on them, but you know, we're gonna live with it as is right now. However, overall, like the interior, I think cleaned up extremely well. You know, with the exterior being so fresh, it does look pretty good in there. Wow, I nearly forgot one of the most important pieces that is insanely worn out. Look at this steering wheel. It is absolutely trashed. Look at this. The leather has like peeled itself. And here is our fine replacement. This is from AZA Auto Wheel, and you can see what they've done is just a few minor upgrades. These little thumb slots here, if you look at the old wheel, it didn't have those, which gives it a more sportier feel, and a slight little flat bottom. AZA Auto Wheel actually does a lot of like pretty crazy stuff. They can do this in carbon fiber. They can do a lot of really neat things. I told them, hey guys, can we keep this very OEM and try to make it look, you know, OEM plus? And I think they succeeded in doing this because this looks so nice. Like gripping the wheel right now, I really do like these reliefs here. I didn't think I would, but I really do in terms of like driving and holding on right there. So overall, such a nice addition to what I think is now a fully complete interior. So we've got one last thing to do before we end this episode. I've got the PC Link software loaded up here, and Forrest is going to remote in. We're gonna start the car up again and check the base timing. That is an important thing to do before you head to the dyno, and we'll verify that. We're also gonna make sure our cooling system is bled. Even though we use that vacuum system to fill the cooling system, we always like to do this just in case there's a small little air pocket or two. We got Forrest remote connected in here, and we did just set base timing. You can see I'm here alone now. Dave had to go, but I used my timing light here to look down there, and we did set base timing, so that is done. You can also see I did have to rig this setup up here with an actual like spark plug wire. It's more consistent. Forrest said to do it this way rather than go off one of those little wires off the back there. So this thing is running. You can see the coolant here. We don't have any bubbles, which is a very good sign. So we're just gonna let this thing come up to temperature now. So it's at 72 degrees Celsius, which is pretty damn good, and it seems to be running quite well. The thing I want to show you guys is what this exhaust sounds like. My goodness, it is unbelievably quiet right now. Like, this exhaust sounds so quiet. Kind of what I was looking for, the perfect street exhaust. And of course, we do have some nice fluttering noises. Oh, listen to that. Yes, 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 and yes. That sounds pretty modest. I love it. It's not gonna be loud at all. So now I'm just gonna let this thing come up to temperature a little bit more, and then we are gonna shut it down here. Oh, actually, let's just do a compression test to make sure we do have ourselves a healthy engine. That's a healthy 150 PSI. Another 150. It's number 4, 150 again. So that does solidify it. Essentially 150 PSI across all cylinders. So we've got ourselves a real healthy motor. So it's not all good, something minor, but I do have, you guys can hear that, a bit of an exhaust leak right here. So that is gonna be a wrap on this one. Thank you everybody for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. The next one is a big one. We are headed to the dyno, but before we head to the dyno, we are going to do a few exterior things. And one of the things is going to be taking care of the wheel setup. I know some of you didn't like it. I know some of you were upset about the poke, so we may have a solution for that, but you'll have to stay tuned for the next video. Oh, wow. These were loose. I guess I may have, oh, look at that. I may have forgotten to tighten them up. Well, there goes our exhaust leak. Disaster averted. Oh, now she sounds so much better.